Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. This is Netflix's 241st film from 2020. It's the Indian Hindi language drama called Choked, or Paisa Bolta Hai. It's directed by Anurag Kashyap. It stars Saiyami Kher, Roshan Mathew, Amruta, Subhash, and Rajshri Deshpande. I'm Jesse. I'm writing here solo for this international Netflix film. As always, I'm going to probably spoil bits and pieces of this film, so if you're keen on checking Choked out, give us a pause, come back later on, and we will get into it with our Fast Flicks, where we do a quick little summary of what the film's all about. This one is about a female bank worker who's struggling with life, and she finds an unlikely source of funds. Interesting, intriguing. What can we find out about this film? What could we see? How did it end up on Netflix? What's it all about? With international films, this is always a very difficult task. The only thing I could sort of find that this film is based on the historic decision of demonetization that the Indian government took in November of 2016. And from Wikipedia about this event, it said that in 2016, the government pulled the $500 and $1,000 rupee bills from circulation, which gave citizens a limited amount of time to exchange their old currency for new bills, and significantly limited the amount they could exchange. It was an attempt by the government to flush out counterfeit bills and cripple cash hoarding, or black money organisations like terrorists and criminals. It did more harm than good, though, because it caused panic and disruption to the economy. And this plays a big part in this film, where the demonetisation, we see it happen, and the impact that it has on the everyday people living in this apartment block in India, as well as everyday citizens who come along to the bank to deposit this money. So nice to see a little sort of real life event intertwined into a narrative fictional story, which was good. I liked that. Translations across the world. This is the literal translation from Hindi of Paisa Bolta Hai is money talks, and that's what this film is about. It's about money. In Spanish, it's called The Strange Fountain of Fortune. Really like that title, because a part of this film, as we will talk about a little bit, is that our main character finds money rolled up in the pipes or the taps that come out with water. So I really like that idea. In Portuguese, it's called The Fortune by the Pipes, which is good too. In French, it's called Dark Fortune. In Greek, it's called Suffocated. In Japanese, it's called I Feel Like I'm Suffocating. And in Russia, it's just called Suffocation. So all a play on this idea of choked. Who's choking who? What's that? Is that crippling coming from the government, or is it coming from our own anxieties of past trauma? I like a lot in this film, and I'm already talking a little bit about some themes and ideas, I guess. This was released on Netflix worldwide on the 5th of June 2020. It was filmed in and around Mumbai in India, and this in India was quite well received, with 14 nominations at a variety of awards ceremonies. So no wins, but 14 noms is pretty big for this film from Netflix. What were the critics and audiences saying about this film? Rotten Tomatoes sits at 54%. That's only on 13 reviews, so it is rotten. Audience a little bit lower at 50% on less than 50 ratings, so a bit mediocre there. IMDb, I guess it's a little bit similar. It sits at a 5.7 out of 10 on a bit over 5,500 ratings. Letterboxd, 2.9 out of 5 on about 1,800 ratings, but it's been logged by 2,300 people. So it sort of sits there in that middle range. Not too positive, not too negative. What did I think? I liked it. I thought it was really good. I think it's got an intriguing story, the lengths that people will go to benefit themselves financially, and what's going to happen? Is there going to be consequences? How's this all going to end out? So I thought it wasn't too bad. Just a bit of a surprise to me. I was a bit surprised, which is good. So let's look at some characters. And realistically, the two main characters are our husband and wife that are living together. The romance, or the kindle, they can't even rekindle their relationship, because I think they're at a stage where it's just not working. And we'll start with Sarita, who's the wife, constantly arguing with her husband Shashant, because she's the one she's providing the money. She's the breadwinner at the moment. She's got a government job for the bank. Her husband, Shashant, he sits at home, doesn't do any housework. Their son, Samir, ends up doing most of this housework himself anyway. She's not very happy with this bank job either, because she goes to work, comes home, cooks, cleans, and she's also got this sort of past trauma or stress of choking in this singing competition, which makes her sort of extra anxious. And we see this through at her job at the bank. She double counts money, and she gave up on her dream of singing, because this failure at this singing competition, and Shashant sort of holds this against her, and I guess that sort of goes in towards him a little bit as a husband, that, considering he's not bringing anything to the relationship at the current time, he's really hard to like, because, he has a go at his wife Sarita for serving the same food, potatoes again, and, tries to get her to fix the tap. These are all things that he could be doing at home when she's at work. And apparently he puts photos of, this failure in this singing competition or talent show that she was in around the house to mock her. That, to me, that's a horrible thing. And on top of that, not only doesn't he work, he owes people money. And there's very little to like about him in this film to start off with. The only other characters, they're sort of side characters. We've got this Reddy guy, who's a dodgy guy that, is involved in this money scheming idea. Dinesh is this old work partner of Shashant who has had enough of Shashant and his lazy ways, but still owes him a little bit of money. And then the other sort of side character, this Thai character who lives in the same apartment block as our two main characters, and it sort of shows her trying to prepare for this wedding, but the decisions that the government are making in the background that are impacting her ability to, have this momentous occasion in her life. Okay, the director, Anurag Kashyap. 32 directing credits, 61 writing credits, 64 producer credits, big name. And if you remember back to a while ago, we did a couple of anthology films, both Indian language anthology films, Lust Stories and Ghost Stories, and we covered him on the show because he did a segment in each of those as well. So do like his work. Some scenes in this film. What are some things that I enjoyed? There's a few things that I think like anytime, a lot of good camera work. Anytime that the camera was going down drains, dripping taps, following money, was really cool. Really like those effects. There's a scene where Shashant goes to Dinesh's house to get money that he's owed, and he's walking around the house trying to find him. I had a bit of a laugh because the wife had actually hidden Dinesh in a cupboard. That was funny. Shashant and Sarita, they have arguments constantly, and unfortunately their kid is always there to sort of observe or stuck in the middle between the two of them, and this is done effectively a couple of times, and one of them was using their kid Samir to relay messages backwards and forwards to each other, even though they can hear each other in the same room. I thought that was well done. I really liked the moment when Sarita first finds this dirty money in the drains, because she has this facial expression that shows us she's actually happy to mop the floor, to do some cleaning and do the housework, because she's got this feeling that maybe things are changing, maybe some good things are happening, and I like that too. Once the demonetization's announced, I really liked that they actually incorporated actual footage from the real life event, and they edited it in with people storming banks, and it was really good, highlighting the panic of what was happening at the time. And finally, Sarita, she sort of goes to all these lengths. She's constantly watching the clock, because there's a certain time of night that the money comes out of the drain, and I thought it was really, really funny when she rocks up home after a tough day, and all of Ty's wedding guests are sleeping all over their house, and she's dragging mattresses and people in bed so that she can ensure no one sees her in the kitchen, so she can continue to keep collecting this money from the drain. And then she sort of moves this old lady into her bed, and then and then Shashant wakes up in the morning and this old lady's in bed next to him. I thought that was funny. That was good. A couple of things that didn't really work. There's a couple of times where Sarita's sort of followed in this film. She's followed from work by this guy. Just goes on and on and on. It's so obvious that he's following her. It takes her forever to actually be like, what do you want? That was ridiculous. And there's another scene towards the end where she's followed by Shashant's friend who's sort of spying on her. That was just so obvious in the shop that she's shopping around and he's following her. It was silly. A couple of random dance scenes, Bollywood style numbers, especially this one at this bachelorette party. I think it was Ty's bachelorette party, where the women all had sunglasses on and their flashes on their phones. Didn't really fit with the rest of the film. And the other scene too is where Sarita forgets her lunch at work, and Shashant brings it to her, and he sort of goes on this sob story about she's never going to find a husband like him. I just thought that was ridiculous based on everything we'd seen from him. She's never going to find such a horrible husband again, I don't think. Anyway, let's move on. Some themes, some ideas. This film is saying quite a bit, I think. Obviously, we've got the idea of class, and all these different people living in this one apartment block, all on top of each other. And right at the top, you've got these corrupt people with all this money, and that money is just flowing down to the lower people who don't have this money. I thought that was good. The struggles of not being able to afford your food, find a job, feed the kids, that sort of stuff. And that leads into the financial strains too. The idea of money and everything starting and ending with money, it causes conflict in relationships. And does it lead to greed? Is that what we're seeing from Sarita? The idea of greed and her needing money to feel satisfied in life, to be able to buy these materialistic things and make herself feel like a normal person. the demonetization from the government, the government making decisions that are impacting everyday people, and the difference in people throughout this film and their support of the government and their decisions too. The ones that it's actually impacting the most are the ones that necessarily don't support the government, whereas those that it doesn't really matter, they don't really care. Especially through the character of Sarita too. We've got the idea of trauma and anxiety and the stress of previous experiences that sort of seem to bring down other parts of her life, which was sad too. And the title, Choked. You got to talk about Choked, the title. The idea of, yes, we see that Sarita chokes on stage when she's singing, but everyone in this film are being choked by finances and by the government and by their decisions too. And it's hard to sort of separate the idea of personal and political because they're almost the same thing as we see throughout this film. What did I take away from this film? I thoroughly enjoyed, there's a lot of jazz music with drums used throughout of the score throughout this film. I thought it was really cool. It's been a while since I've sort of enjoyed the music in a film so much and sort of sat with the vibe of the scenes that we were seeing on screen. So call out to that. I really enjoyed that. Questions, observation time. We see towards the end there's a bit of like a montage cut between a robbery at the bank with Sarita and Shashank sort of working on some new music or a job towards the end of the film. I mean, we didn't see a follow through. Do you reckon we saw this flashback a flash forward a year later, but do you reckon he's gone on to become a successful musician? It would have been nice to see a little bit of a follow through on that, I think. The other thing too, the idea of choking. Have you ever choked? I mean, in a literal sense, sport is something for me that's definitely a basketball, free throws. I've definitely choked in free throws before, but it's a tough thing when, building that ability to get over it and be like, cool, I can actually do this. I've frozen, I freaked out at some stage, but I'm good to go another time. All interesting things, and I think that's probably part of the reason why I like this film, and it's time to wrap it up and give the film a rating out of 5. I was engaged. I thought there's some really good shots in this film. There's some good scenes, some good performances, some good ideas that are running throughout, and I think it's one of the better Hindi films that we've sort of covered on this show, and we have done quite a few. So I'm giving this a 3 out of 5. I'm recommending it, saying give it a shot if you can, because it's worth the watch. As always, we're on socials. We've got Twitter, we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram. Give us a follow, give us a like. I'm going to put a question on there for the week. How much money do you need to be happy? Well, tough question. I think just, enough to feed yourself and live comfortably is enough. You don't need to be super rich like the billionaires of the world. Just enough money to live comfortably would be nice. Imagine if everyone was able to do that. Yeah, good question. All right, we're back next week. Next week, we have a 2020 action thriller film. It's called The Last Days of American Crime. This is directed by Oliver Megaton. It stars Edgar Ramirez, Anna Brewster, Michael Pitt, Patrick Bergen, and Charlotte Copley. Interested. I think this is a long one. A long film. So I'm looking forward to checking it out. As always, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next week.